They are certainly not happy, it's fair to say, with this ruling. And it goes back, as you mentioned, a fair amount of time. These are two of Trump's most high-profile public adversaries.
We head to the US to find out what's happening in Washington, where Lara Spirit is our woman cartwheeling through the corridors of power. Hello, Lara.
Hi, Hugo.
Thanks for being with us. Look, there's a flurry of diplomatic activity today around the Ukraine peace deal. US officials are meeting Russian representatives in Abu Dhabi. Keir Starmer is hosting a virtual meeting with Ukraine's allies. And now we're hearing that President Zelensky might be travelling to Washington in the coming days to finalise a peace deal directly with Donald Trump. Lara, but first on that visit, how likely do we think that is? And do we have any indication of when it might be?
We don't yet know. The president is due to travel later to Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving, so not that would necessarily get in the way. I'm sure Zelensky could travel, but that certainly does suggest that perhaps the plans aren't set in stone quite yet. But we do have, I think, quite a few questions that still need to be ironed out before we get to the point at which Trump and Zelensky are happy to sit down. Perhaps chief among them, the questions that should be ironed out, we hope, by Dan Driscoll, the Army Secretary of the US, who's been dispatched by Trump to Abu Dhabi today to try and present that 19-point plan, not the larger point plan, to Russian negotiators. That needs to go off, of course, in some ways without a hitch, and needs to not have changes that the Europeans and Zelensky would find unpalatable, at which point you could say that perhaps a meeting between Zelensky and Trump would be the right thing to do and appropriate at that time. So still quite a few hurdles left to clear.
Look, Trump's enthusiasm for making peace in this region, and indeed his sort of enthusiasm for both the parties in this conflict, seem to ebb and flow in various directions over time. He's posted on Truth Social that something good may just be happening. Is there a sense in Washington that this time is different from all the other times, or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. And as you say, there have been periods, obviously, famously, and it must have been said thousands of times on Times Radio at this point, that Trump said that he thought he could solve the war within 24 hours. Of course, it's proven much more difficult by his own admission. It's proven the most difficult of the many conflicts that he has turned his hand to. And at this point, of course, he's sort of renewed focus on it after success in Gaza, and now feels that there is a possibility to really break through here. Whether or not that's true, of course, we still don't know. It does seem like there was a very successful day of negotiations in Geneva on Sunday, as far as the US is concerned. Of course, Rubio speaking very warmly about his conversations with the Ukrainians. And as you just mentioned there, that post from Trump on Truth Social indicating that he felt that perhaps things were moving in the right direction. We did have a Thursday, i.e. Thanksgiving deadline for Zelensky to agree to that plan. Now, it does seem that has been softened. We had from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, yesterday, an indication that that's been replaced with a as soon as possible. And of course, we've previously heard Rubio mention various other days of the week, and I hope that it would get done soon. So I think at this point, it's very hard to say with any certainty what will happen, given that, as you say, you've got various different diplomatic plates spinning all at once. But certainly Trump will be watching this with great interest.
There are, of course, troubled memories of that other time that Zelensky and Trump met. Is there some trepidation about the two of them coming face to face in front of the cameras?
I mean, we should say that they've met subsequently to that and things have been much warmer. And Zelensky, I think, has been at pains to follow the playbook of a successful diplomatic visit to Washington, which tends to involve gifts and a huge dose of flattery to the president in order for things to go successfully. And indeed, subsequent to that meeting, they have famously, Zelensky dressing in smarter sartorial guise, which was praised, having, of course, been insulted at the previous meeting on account of what he was wearing. So I think it's fair to say that meeting isn't the kind of last or indeed the norm for interactions between the president and Zelensky. But at this point, of course, all bets are off. I think the involvement of Driscoll is absolutely fascinating. This is somebody who was not involved in high-level Ukrainian diplomatic peace deals until relatively recently. Indeed, he was dispatched to talk about arms procurement, defense procurement, and has ended up as kind of the front man and Trump's point person in what happens now with the Russian negotiations. He, we should say, a classmate, Yale classmate of J.D. Vance's, the vice president, someone who last night hit out at his Republican colleagues by saying the level of passion over this one issue when your country has serious problem is bonkers. It disgusts me. He has, I think it's fair to say, or many are surmising, perhaps slightly different views on the conflict to someone like, for example, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, another possible 2028 candidate. So I think lots of different political issues in Washington that many are looking at the Ukrainian negotiations to think about.
Look, stick with us, Lara. We've just heard Keir Starmer has just been delivering a statement in the House of Commons on Ukraine. So let's have a quick listen to that.
Which, of course, is at the forefront of all of our minds. Over recent days, I've had detailed discussions with allies. I met the partners of the Coalition of the Willing during the G20, and I've spoken a number of times to both President Trump and President Zelensky, who I spoke to again earlier this morning. Mr. Speaker, we're united in wanting a ceasefire and a permanent end to the horrendous suffering that this war has brought to Ukraine. I have always said our aim must be a just and lasting peace. And both of those words, Mr. Speaker, are important, just and lasting. So, Mr. Speaker...
That is Keir Starmer there speaking in the House of Commons. Lara Spirit is still with me. Lara, look, domestically in the US, a judge has dismissed criminal charges against the former FBI Director James Comey and the New York Attorney General Letitia James, ruling that the prosecutor who brought those charges was unlawfully appointed. Tell us a bit about the background here. What's happened here? Trump has repeatedly attacked Comey and James. Has there been any response to this?
Yes. So at the moment, we should say that the White House believe that this is a technical ruling and that they, bipartisan judge, and that they intend to appeal it. In the case, at least of Comey, it looks like the statute of limitations may have passed. It's not totally clear that it will be possible for them to do that, but they are certainly not happy, it's fair to say, with this ruling. And it goes back, as you mentioned, a fair amount of time. Trump has, these are two of Trump's most high-profile public adversaries. As far as he is concerned, he previously posted on Truth Social in September, directed to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying they're all guilty as hell, mentioning, of course, Comey and James, but also Adam Schiff, a Democratic senator, and saying, but nothing is going to be done. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and our credibility. In other words, he is quite open about wanting to see charges brought against these individuals who have in the past offended him in various different ways. Comey being indicted on charges of making false statements and obstruction of justice in connection with those links to the 2016 presidential campaign. And at this point, it's hard to say what will happen. But that post that I just mentioned was actually, the Wall Street Journal has reported, meant to be sent privately to Trump, privately to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, not posted on True Social, as indeed it was. And because it was quite an interesting insight into the president's thinking. At this point, it's not the only of these cases against adversaries that's rolling on. We've, of course, had John Bolton, the former national security advisor, who has been indicted by a grand jury in Maryland, as well as a number of other perceived enemies of the president who the Department of Justice could well be going after. What's interesting about this case is that the judge wasn't ruling on those indictments themselves. The judge was ruling on the appointment of the prosecutor that was chosen to bring these indictments forward, Lindsay Halligan, who is a 36-year-old lawyer and former White House aide who previously had no prosecutorial experience. And Comey and James's lawyers successfully argued that she had been appointed illegally on the basis, in part, that the predecessor to Halligan had been appointed on a kind of temporary basis without Senate approval, and that you can only really do that once. You can't do that again. He left, we should say. He resigned hours after Trump publicly called for him to go. And after it's been widely reported, he made clear that he didn't believe there was sufficient evidence to bring cases against Comey and James. So very fascinating. Obviously, as I say, the White House wants to fight this probably tooth and nail. So it'll be very interesting to see see what happens next.
Thank you very much indeed, Lara Spirit in Washington. And look, Lara has a piece in the Times about why so many women are fleeing America after a recent poll found that 40% of women wanted to leave the US for good. You won't want to miss that. You'll find that at thetimes.com. Thank you very much indeed, Lara Spirit.